We've known about the threshold in the sky for centuries. We wanted to see what the birds saw. The eagle is our symbol. First, we went where the eagle went and found thresholds beyond the eagle. We went faster and higher. We took our incredible new speed close to the ground. The threshold, the ultimate edge. No matter where we find it, that's where we must go. We all know the peculiar fascination of the threshold. Tell us to avoid it, and we ignore the warnings. That's the way it is. The edge of the cliff is where we will go. If we don't accept the challenge, we may never know what we can do. A threshold always asks the question, can you do this? Right from the beginning, let's not think about heroic figures. Open your mind. This is about men. This is people doing the very best they can at a job they do every day. These are people no different in many ways from their fellows, except that they have lost at least one human habit, the habit of complacency. Aviation is so totally unforgiving. It has limits which we know and can describe, but it is so intensely human to seek the limits we cannot describe. Demonstration flying, the most demanding of all sports. There are only a dozen men in the world who play this game in this particular hair-raising way. Fewer than 100 who have ever played it. It's riskier than bullfighting or mountain climbing, and its skills involve a most extreme form of precision, which often shows up most clearly in emergencies which nobody anticipated. Everything you are about to see is the way it happens. Nothing staged, nothing faked. As you see it, that's the way it is.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you here this afternoon, Commander J.D. Davis, and our United States racing team, the Blue Angels. The precision maneuvers you will see demonstrated here this afternoon are coordinated techniques. These maneuvers might be flown from treetop level to 60,000 feet. But for the team, it is a continuous demonstration of their skill and training in a very low altitude environment. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if I may direct your attention on the ramp just before us.
I think everyone gets considerably worked up prior to an air show. It's similar to any type of performance, except that we're performing before anywhere between 4 and 6 million people a year. And at one time, you can have anywhere from, I suppose, 20 to 30,000 people, upwards to 1 million.
We'll team up to start the power plant systems of our aircraft. The noise level may become too high. You can hear exactly.
I personally am able to put out of my mind the fact that this crowd is down there and they are observing when I am in the aircraft. As soon as the engines are started, the business begins, just like a stage show or rehearsal. You have rehearsed it and done it so many times that you're able to withdraw yourself from this emotional involvement and enter it as a professional.
The main reason that you described so hard to put on a good show, not only a good show, but the best show that you've ever put on. Each time that you appear is the whole essence of the Blue Angel tradition, and that you have had very, very fine teams go before you, and you'll have fine teams come after you, and it's the tradition of the whole thing that calls for putting on your absolute top performance each time you go out.
Concentration is the whole secret to the air show. You must concentrate 100% and, if possible, 110% of the time. You have to continuously talk to yourself, continuously force yourself not to become complacent, to work as hard as you possibly can, and to accept nothing but perfection. I have the position where I have all the other airplanes in sight at all times, and the scary thing is when you see somebody starting to move, or if it's in turbulent air, you see somebody bouncing around a little bit. And when you look up at the wingtips and you could say, well, if he moved much more, he might bump airplanes.
We have a saying that we've never flown a perfect air show. We probably never will. So there's always something in an air show that you're not too happy with. But what I look for is the fact that you've got to always know where the ground is. You've always got to work within your own capabilities. Never try to work outside of them. If the first time you do, you're going to bust it.
When I'm strapping in the airplane, the thing I start thinking about is getting myself mentally prepared for my dirty roll, which is the first solo maneuver that I do. It's probably the one that's most difficult. You're trying to do that maneuver low, but not too low.
If you've trained right and you know what you're doing, you shouldn't really scare yourself that often. You shouldn't scare yourself every air show. It's maybe 1 in 5.
Chariots of the gods. It's easy to think of these big metal beasts that way, and the men in them tend to lose touch with the rest of us. But they're still men, and not all that different. What they've done is to find a new way to test our limits. They cross a threshold and return to tell about it.
On the runway now, the Blue Angel diamond in fingertip formation. Commander Hall calling the pilots to 100% power as each pilot carefully checking the engine instruments one final time prior to their brake release. The pilots now, satisfied that their aircraft are ready to go, acknowledge to Commander Hall with a thumbs up, and he in turn calling for afterburners on now.
Burners on now. Water off. I'll go flash up. Just try to get down. Okay. Ease on the bar. Ease on the bar. Burners off. Stand by for the brakes. Brakes. You're up, Steve. Yeah, okay.
Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, back to our right, Blue Angel number 5. Watch carefully. Upon becoming airborne with the landing gear and flaps extended, Steve will roll that aircraft 360 degrees while airborne.
You're on your back looking down at that runway thinking there's no way I'm going to make it. And then you pull out and you say, boy, I'm not going to do that again. And sure enough, the next day went right out and did it again.
To the right once again, and a very precise transition. Watch carefully as Skip retracts the landing gear and flaps, accelerates his aircraft at 280 miles per hour, performing the very, very graceful Immelman on takeoff. Up through the vertical now, relaxing the pressure on the stick and floating his aircraft over the top, literally hanging in his straps as he rolls that aircraft 180 degrees.
When we come off the high-performance climb, we come out of afterburner, and we put the speed brakes out. The formation seems to set itself, and I kind of slouch down into my old familiar body position in the cockpit, and I set myself, and now the air show is on.
Altitude of 100 feet over the ground. A pass on the flight line to give you a real close look at the complete wing overlap and the 36-inch wingtip to canopy separation which exists in the Blue Angel Diamond. That same formation which we will see accelerating to more than 500 miles per hour.
Gotcha, Steve. Over at 67. Easing the power. Hold on. Hey, suck it to him, gang. $250. You have to look outside, man. 300. Be right on the outside edge, Ernie. Okay, 350. Hurry on my right, yep. Okay, kid, we'll be on the taxiway, Ski. Piece of cake, boss. All right, easing the power at 400. Take it down, boss. Bring it down, bring it down.
Yeah, I could hear all three of the other aircraft. We were no more than about 10 feet wingtip to wingtip on the boss, and I could see Jim and Kevin as they crossed. They weren't more than 10 to 15 feet above me.
Pull it, Jeff. Pull it, Dave. Smoke off, off. Coming right, very nice.
Coming off the flight line as you're breaking back towards the rendezvous, you're saying to yourself, well, that was good. That was damn good.
Yes, clear. Yes, clear. Attaboy, attaboy.
And if you have a good cross off the opener, why then it's electric between the cockpits. Everybody realizes that they've got a good one going. And you kind of get the feeling in your mind, well, I've only got 23 more maneuvers to do. You know, don't blow it now. I got to get it going.
Okay, take it down just a little bit. Little bar, little bar. Little jump. Let's hit it.
More than 500 miles per hour as they streak for that single point of crossing just on the flight line before it.
Normally on a, let's say a knife edge pass, we'll cross within one wingspan of one another, one plane width, which is 20 to 30 feet apart. But occasionally, if the visibility is exceptionally good, we have one another in sight quite a long ways out. Especially on a knife edge, we may cross within 2, 3, 4 feet of one another.
Oh, good collision effect. You just missed a good collision effect then.
For every maneuver, there's a cutoff point where you can finish the maneuver safely, where you go beyond that point and it's questionable whether you can finish the maneuver, and you go beyond that, and especially, let's say, in the case of a loop, whether you know it or not, you can't finish the maneuver.
Okay, how much you got, Jeff? I'm floating. Keep that coming in, Kevin. Looks good, started in, Jim. Easing the power. Let's bring it in, guys. Let's drive it right in. Hustle, Jim. Add it, boss. Add it. Good, now bring it on in. Bring it in. Looks good. Right on in. Okay, boss, take it out of the weeds.
If you watch an air show that is done correctly, it looks like it's something that is so easy that anyone can do it. This is one of the things that we find with the new people coming aboard. They cannot fly smoothly 2 to 4 feet from another aircraft. They don't realize that that is total and utter concentration, blocking out all else. That little world that they live in is a little spot on that aircraft that's about 3 inches wide, and they must remain in that spot at all costs.
Is such a point that you're working so hard that you can't really think about the flying. You're just sitting there looking at a wingtip, hanging on for dear life, and saying, "Okay, I've got to do this right," and look out, the wing's coming down, or Jim or Kevin are getting a little bit out of position, to call them up back into position, start thinking about the next maneuver, talking to the boss about whether the air is too rough, we ought to ease it out a little bit, or the terrain, whether we're flying too low at the bottom of maneuvers. You don't think about the flying.